Hello, friends. Back once again at the last minute with these UFC Nasruddin Imavov versus Cannonier Fight Night picks. Not going to go on too much of a tangent in the intro this time. About to hop straight into it, starting off with the early prelim fight of Puja Tomar versus Rayanne Amanda. I'm going with Rayanne Amanda. I think this fight is actually a little bit of a mismatch in favor of Rayanne Amanda, just in terms of overall general skill. Puja Tomar is not unskilled by any means. She actually is a bit of a striker, but the level of competition that Puja's been fighting in India, she's an Indian fighter, is questionable at best. That's all I'll say. It's questionable at best. If you ask me, it's funny that I say this because Dana White actually went on one of Andrew Schultz's podcasts recently and was talking about this. He was like, because people think, the UFC wants this guy to win or wants this guy to lose or, this fighter to win, this fighter to lose, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Sometimes that does happen. This is one of those fights. The UFC, I promise you, they might not say it, would like Puja Tomar to win. As in that same podcast, Dana White talked about how one of the biggest markets they're trying to break into is India. They want an Indian female fighter to win. If this is a close decision, do not be tweaked if fucking Puja Tomar comes away with a robbery. I have no clue, but might sound like I'm hating or even pre-coping, but really that's it. Rayanne Amanda's the pick. I think that she's a much better grappler, and I think she'll be able to hang on the feet at least, just not get finished. And she will be able to maybe eventually find a finish of her own, be it ground and pound or submission. That is Rayanne Amanda. Both women close in age. Puja's 30, Rayanne is 29. Similar size too. Puja Tomar is 5'1", Rayanne is 5'2". Rayanne has a lot more experience though, and I think against better fighters overall. Moving on to the second fight. It's spooky, man. Second fight of the night though, that's enough of that. Cody Stamann versus Taylor Lapilus, or as I call him, Taylor Lapilou. But I've actually gone in my head back and forth on this one. I've kind of like maybe Cody Stamann somehow pulls it out or steals a little decision away from Taylor Lapilus. I think this one's going to decision. I think ultimately I'm going to have to settle on Taylor Lapilus because he is a technical dude, a bit of a decision merchant at the UFC level type shit, but hey, it is what it is, honestly. Both dudes similar in size, except Taylor Lapilus has an unbelievable reach advantage. He has a 73-inch reach compared to Cody Stamann's 64.5. It almost seems like an error, but maybe it's not. Cody Stamann 2 years older at 34 years old, both dudes 5'6", or listed at 5'6". Spooky hours, man. Spooky hours. Both dudes have decent experience as fighters. I'm honestly going to go with Taylor Lapilus to just get another fucking decision. I won't say boring decision, but just a decision. Moving on to Eduardo Mora versus Denise Gomes. Denise Gomes, a bit of a fall from grace, honestly. At one point, she was KOing some chicks left and right. Then that stopped, and she started to get violated a little bit. Eduardo Mora, I'm actually not too familiar with her. Despite there being a bit of a height advantage for Eduardo Mora, there's not too much of a reach advantage. Eduardo Mora is also 6 years older at 30 years old. I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of thinking Denise Gomes is going to bounce back from her skid that she's been on, get one of those nice little TKOs back in there. I'm fucking riding with Denise Gomes. There's a couple picks on this card that I'm tweaking out a little bit on. This might be one of them. Yeah, I think it is one of them, actually. But there you go. One underdog off for it, because last time I checked, she is an underdog. Denise Gomes. Very calmly. Moving on to a fight that I'm very fucking excited for. Again, one of my Peruvian brothers, Daniel Marcos versus John Castaneda. This shit I think should be a really good fight. It could end up being a little boring, but hopefully it's a really good fight. I think someone's getting finished here, actually, type shit. I think Daniel Marcos is going to get this one done, and calmly. Daniel Marcos is actually nice. Say whatever the fuck you want to about the Davy Grant decision. But Daniel Marcos is an actual Peruvian fighter that's not dog shit. He's not just a fucking journeyman. Thank God. Thank the Lord. He's not just some one-dimensional fighter or some just straight-up dog shit mids fighter that made it to the UFC. Bro, you know how many if you look back on like all the new Peruvian like debutants in the UFC, they've all gotten washed, bro. Washed bad, bro. And it's tough, man. Like, it's so tough. Daniel Marcos, Kevin Borjas, even though he lost his last fight and it was kind of bad if I remember, he also is kind of he's in the realm of Daniel Marcos, you know. He's passed the test a little bit. I have to see one more actually, because he might be falling out of the good graces. But I digress. I'm going with Daniel Marcos to get this one done. Very slick striking, smart fighter, patient fighter, and very powerful. Very powerful. Has some nice little sneaky techniques in there as well. John Castaneda is no slouch at all, but I do think Daniel Marcos has this one. Moving on to Andrea Lee. Andrea KGB Lee versus Montana De La Rosa. Andrea Lee, man. I've been backing her. I didn't back her in her last fight. I think her last fight was Miranda Maverick, and I picked Miranda Maverick to beat her. But I've picked her before that, and she's let me down, unfortunately. And she's on a losing streak, I'm pretty sure, a bad one, too. Montana De La Rosa ain't doing much better herself, though. I know that for the fact. This is just, like, pain, man. What the fuck? I'm going with Andrea Lee. I'm going with Andrea Lee. No, that's just the feeling, the vibe. Going with Andrea KGB Lee. Hopefully she doesn't just let herself lose this fight, but let's see. Moving on to the battle of the fucking bums. Brad Katona versus Jesse Butler. Now, if you are an actual watcher of the channel, if you've watched these pick videos and you've seen my picks when it comes to this man, Brad Katona, you know I'm a Brad Katona fucking hater. Like, fuck Brad Katona. We're smoking on Brad Katona. We've been smoking on Brad Katona ever since his second UFC run. Like, he came back in the UFC. Fucking bum. I've literally been picking against him ever since The Ultimate Fighter. No bullshit. Now, he proved me wrong in the Ultimate Fighter finale, but that was dog shit. That was because the other dude, Cody Gibson, I think his name is just also, like, somehow worse, which is terrifying. He was somehow worse, but also that was like one of Brad Katona's best fights. And that's terrifying. I have, like, it's really off of a principle. I can't pick Brad Katona. I don't fuck with Brad Katona. I picked his last opponent. I forget his last opponent's last name, but Garrett, like, Armson or Armfield or Arm something, but might not even be Arm, but Garrett, and then his last name starts with an A. I picked that dude to win. A lot of people were picking fucking Brad Katona because they're like, Brad Katona, you know, he sucks, but he's just miles better than fucking Garrett, whatever the fuck. Garrett dog-walked him. Dog-walked his stupid ass. Brad Katona sucks. Get him the fuck out of the UFC. Now, Jesse Butler, though. This is terrifying. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm picking Jesse Butler. I was always going to pick Jesse Butler. Jesse Butler was brought into the UFC as fodder, as straight-up fodder. I think Jim Miller, one of Jim Miller's fights, had fallen out. They called up this wee lad, Jesse Butler, nice and early, nice on short notice. He gets one shot, or he gets like two shot brutally, like knees folded, eyes open, I think, knocked unconscious. That was nice. This is probably the last fight on his contract, I guess, type shit for the UFC. So we will see how he does. I'm really going with Jesse Butler here because even though he really is not a UFC caliber at all, that doesn't stop fighters from having maybe one UFC caliber fight. I'm just praying it's this one. I'm praying that he can use he has a massive physical advantage over Brad Katona in this fight. They are both 32 years old, but Jesse Butler is 5'10" compared to Brad Katona's 5'6". And Brad Katona has a 64.5-inch reach listed compared to Jesse Butler's 73 inches of reach. Man, size does matter. It does. That's the basis of this pick. It's a bit of principle and a bit of straight gambling. I'm gambling on Jesse Butler. The odds in this, I think Jesse Butler is the biggest underdog on the card. He was the biggest underdog on the card, I think, versus Jim Miller as well. Like, and it's for good reason. He's not a UFC caliber fighter. He's not expected to win. In fact, it's very rare if he's going to win, but for him to win. But we are going with Jesse Butler. Moving on, that's just an RNG rookie pick. Like I said, I'm bugging out. I'm tweaking on this one a little bit. Again, another fight that I really am looking forward to, and I think actually a lot of people might think this pick is tweaky, but just hear me out. Charles Radke versus Carlos Prates. Now, Carlos Prates is actually extremely good technically on the feet, offensively. But I don't know why people don't talk about this. Carlos Prates gets hit like a motherfucker. He gets hit like a motherfucker, bro. Like a motherfucker. Gilbert, you can say Gilbert Urbina didn't want to fight. And so the Charles Radke win, it was impressive, but maybe not that impressive. Sure. But he did show us he has power and a little bit of accuracy with that one. And I'm praying that built his confidence. I think if Charles Radke can honestly land on Carlos Prates in more than like 3 engagements, like win these engagements, the TKO or KO is going to come. Like, Carlos Prates, he is very good on the feet. He is very powerful, very precise as well, with both his hands and feet. However, his defense leaves a lot to be desired. People touch him. People touch him the fuck up. Even on the regional scene, for real. People have laid him the fuck out before. I'm going with Charles Radke, man. Chuck Buffalo to get this one done. Let's go, bro. I'm really riding on this shit. Again, a bit of a notable reach advantage and general size advantage for Carlos Prates, but fuck it. Fuck it. Gilbert Urbina was bigger too. Fuck it. Moving on to Thiago Moises versus Ludovic Klein. I'm going with Ludovic Klein on this one. I saw a hilarious fucking comment on Tapology, and it was like, Thiago Moises doesn't want to fight. He doesn't like fighting for real. And that shit's jokes. Like, he doesn't like fighting for real. And as with all the best jokes, there's maybe a grain of truth somewhere hidden in there. I'll leave it at that. Ludovic Klein is coming off of a very good performance, actually a spectacular performance, versus AJ Cunningham, who is decent. He's decent enough. Very strong, good grappling. Ludovic Klein, very crisp striking. I'm expecting that to come out. Hopefully he can press Thiago Moises and just take over the fight slowly but surely. Moving on to Punelli Soriano versus Miguel Beza. Now, Miguel Beza, I'm actually not familiar with in the slightest. I'd never heard of him. I saw that he has fought in the UFC, but he took a lot of time off because he was getting knocked the fuck out a couple times. Punelli has kind of found a similar fate. He's met a similar fate. Came into the UFC, people thought maybe this guy will be something. Ended up he started getting starched pretty fucking bad. And now he's not looked at in high regard. I'll leave it at that. I think Punelli, honestly, this fight is tweaky. I really don't know who's going to win. I am going with Miguel Beza just because I want to take my chances on a dude it might sound crazy to some people. I want to take my chances on a dude I really haven't seen, but someone who took time off, hopefully. He's 31. He's not too old. And with the 3 losses in a row, that puts him at 3-3 in the UFC. That is Miguel Beza. That's not bad. I'll take that. A little bit of height and reach advantage over Punelli as well. Punelli, I'm scared, is going to come out on some demon time, like trying to save his career. That's all we have to hope that doesn't happen. Going with Miguel Beza for this one. Another fight that is just tweaky. Some of these fights are tweaky. I was going to say the theme for this card, definitely, and I've said it before, they've done cards like this in the past, is redemption. It's redemption. Redemption, atonement, coming back from bad losses. A lot of these dudes have taken bad losses recently. Not all of them. Some of these dudes are putting at high spots, filling in spots like Raul Rosas Jr. and Ricky Tercios. Even though this fight should have already happened, obviously both of these dudes aren't trying to necessarily redeem themselves. Kind of similar to Bruno Ferreira and Dustin Soltis. But actually, no. Those dudes are definitely in the redeemer. Even though they've won their last fights both respectively, they are still trying to redeem themselves from the bad losses they had suffered earlier. Although Bruno Ferreira, that wasn't the worst loss to have against fucking Nurulstin Ruziboev. The fight, though, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Julian Marquez, the Cuban Missile Crisis, versus Zach Reese. Zach Reese, man, people were talking about this motherfucker like he was Guts from Berserk. And then Cody fucking Brundage picked him up on his head. Like, picked him up and slammed him on his goddamn head. That filled me with so much joy and pleasure. It was beautiful. It made me bite my lower lip. So much fucking pleasure from seeing that dude get dropped on his fucking dome. Right after the beautiful Drakkar Close over, I think it was Joe Selecki, actually, unfortunately, over the Joe Selecki Drakkar Close slam KO. That was such a crazy night, man, of fights. Also, Ihor Peteria, I think, bugged out that night, too. Like, that was just a great night of fights, man. But, I digress. Unfortunately, not unfortunately. I'm rolling the dice. I'm going with fucking Zach Reese. Let's see what you can do, bro. Julian Marquez, I just don't necessarily trust like that. Like, I have to be honest. I just don't trust him like that. Zach Reese did not make a good first impression, but I'll take my chances. I might get murked on this card, but fuck it. Bruno Ferreira. Moving on. Bruno Ferreira versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Like I said again, redemption, man. These guys are trying to redeem themselves. And definitely Julian Marquez and Zach Reese both trying to redeem themselves. Same thing with Pinel Soriano and Miguel Beza. Like, I'm just going to recap the whole card up until now. We'll talk about redemption. Redemption, really. UFC Fight Night Redemption. That's actually what I'm going to call it. Low-key. That's going to be the title of this one. Rayanne Amanda is trying to redeem herself somewhat. Puja's trying to make a name for himself. Taylor Lapidus has to redeem himself in the eyes of the fans. Cody Stamann, same thing. Denise Gomez and Eduardo Mora are actually redeeming themselves. Well, Eduardo's trying to prove herself. Denise is redeeming herself. Daniel Marcos and John Castaneda, a mix of everything a little bit. Andrea Lee versus Montana De La Rosa, definite redemption. Brad Katona versus Jesse Butler. This is like what puts you on to this is redemption. Now, Charles Radke versus Carlos Prates is the interesting one. This is like one of those ones where they want to see who comes out on top for real. This is a test for both of these guys. Like, Charles, are you as bad as we thought you were? And this is the UFC saying that. Are you as bad as we thought you were? And for Carlos, are you as good as we think you are? We'll have to see that. Thiago Moises versus Ludovic Klein. Again, no redemption there. That's just a good old fight. Good old fight. Ponelli Soriano versus Miguel Beza. Redemption. Julian Marquez versus Zach Reese. Redemption. Bruno Ferreira versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Where we are right now. Redemption. For both of these dudes, somewhat. I'm going with Bruno Ferreira, man. I've backed Bruno Ferreira multiple times. Dude's actually come in clutch for me, low-key. Obviously not the Neuralston time, but what can you do? Dustin Stoltzfus, though, came out looking like a new man in his last fight. Came out looking like a demon. He put on an incredible fight. Gotta see if that carries through into the later parts of his career. He's 2-4 in the UFC right now, and he's 32 years old. You know, Bruno Ferreira, 31 years old, 11-1, 2-1 in the UFC. We'll see, man. Like I said, redemption. I'm going with Bruno Ferreira, though. I think he'll get this one done, honestly. Because Dustin Stoltzfus, his chin, teensy bit suspect, in my opinion. Teensy bit. Moving on to Raul Rojas Jr. versus Pretty Ricky Turcios, one of the better nicknames in the UFC. I'm going with Raul Rosas, man. I was always going with Raul Rosas. Ricky Turcios is not the dude who we thought he was. He is not. Raul Rosas has a lot to show us, but that's a good thing in some aspects. That's a very good thing in some aspects. Ricky Turcios, we haven't really liked what we've seen. So Raul Rosas Jr. is the pick for that very calmly. Moving on to Dominic Reyes versus Dustin Jacoby. Spooky hours fight. This is such a spooky hours fight, man. Dominic Reyes, you know, fighting is just the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, you know. If anybody knows that well, it's Dominic Reyes. At one point, people say to this day, and I'm not putting my opinion in, I'm not inserting my opinion at all, people still say to this day, the only man to have beaten John Jones. The only problem? He lost. Decision, really. That was the problem. But, hey, it's nothing new. Nothing new to fighting, you know, fucking robberies, tweaky decisions. that was the hand Dominic Reyes was dealt. Unfortunately, he was never kind of the same after that John Jones fight, and he has been knocked out brutally and TKO'd brutally since then. It's just all been downhill from there, really. Dustin Jacoby, on the other hand, has kind of gotten it together, even though he's had big bumps in the road like the Alonzo Menifield fight, which I picked Alonzo Menifield to win that fight. That was a good fight for him. For Dustin Jacoby, I mean, Dustin Jacoby was piecing up Alonzo crazy, but he just couldn't take the power from Alonzo back and got caught brutally. I was very happy for Alonzo, but Dustin, I say that to say this, Dustin Jacoby is actually very technical. He's a very technical fighter, a good striker, and he starts off very strong. He starts off strong. He pressures people. I like that. That's what he was doing to Alonzo, and it was working until it wasn't working anymore. I think that will work against Dominic Reyes, and who knows with Dominic's chin, who knows what state it's in, that might get him a finish, a first-round finish, to be honest. On to the main event of Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier versus Nasruddin the Russian Sniper Imavov. Interesting fight, right? Now, if the Roman Dolidze fight never happened, if it never happened, I would pick Nasruddin Imavov. After seeing that motherfucking fight, I just don't know about Nasruddin Imavov anymore, bro. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm going with Jared Cannonier. The power of crystals, the good chakra, good vibes. Let's fucking go, man. Coming into this fight at 40 years old, bro, and in fucking incredible shape. Insanity. Not too much on this pick. That's really it. I will not pick Nasruddin Imavov after the fucking Roman Dolidze fight. Dog shit fight. Horrible fight. Horrible fighter. He's a horrible fighter, as Canelo would say. That's pretty much it. I'll recap them all once again. I got Rayanne Amanda, Taylor Lapilus. Actually, fuck it. I'll throw in those little rounds and method of victory as well. I'm going to go with Rayanne Amanda. Round 2. Submission. Where's my pen? So we got Rayanne Amanda submitting Puja Tomar in round 2. We got Taylor Lapilu. Fucking take a guess how he's going to win. Denise Gomez by KO TKO in fucking round 1. I'm expecting that kind of demon time from this. Daniel Marcos. Now, this is an interesting one, man. Because Daniel Marcos is one of those dudes that can put together a smooth TKO, build it up, get the finish, find the finish, and it'll roll. It'll come naturally. But he also has enough power to finish fights at any moment. So does John Castaneda. God, man, this is spooky. I'm going to say KO TKO round 3. Fuck it. It's going to be one of those. Actually, as I say that, I low-key think I remember reading back, and John Castaneda actually might be Mr. Third Round Finish, but hey, I called it. I called it already. Andrea Leah got winning by decision. Jesse Butler, interesting. Now, how does the Jesse Butler fight go down? Does Jesse Butler... Well, first off, I will come back to reality. Does Brad Katona fucking just barely do enough to qualify as pressuring him? Slightly edging in exchanges, controlling clinches, maybe gets a takedown, some dumb shit, and ends up winning a decision? That could happen. Sure. Super rare, does Brad Katona fucking KO Jesse Butler's ass? Maybe. God bless him if he does. Now, does Jesse Butler violate Brad Katona off rip? I'd love him to do that. I'd absolutely fucking love him to do that. Does he finish Brad Katona? Brad Katona is tough. That's one thing I can't take away from him. I'll say Jesse Butler, but when I say decision though, that's the scary thing. Does Jesse Butler maybe drop him in 2 of the 3 rounds? Maybe drops him in round 1, and then beats his ass in round 3, wins a decision. This is a super tough one actually. I'm actually not going to... Oh, God, I can't not. And again, I'm getting bloodthirsty. I always say I'm bloodthirsty. If you ask me how fights are going to end, I'm always going to say by finish, because in my mind, I'm fucking tweaking out. We'll go with the safe option. Fuck it. It's not. No. Fuck that. KO. TKO. Round 1 for Jesse Butler. Get him out of there quick. Charles Radke. Ooh, I do got Charles Radke winning by KO TKO, and that's more legitimate. That's not just like my bloodlust coming through. I got him winning by KO TKO. I don't know about off rip, but I think it'll come eventually. I just don't know when. I do not know when. The number 2 sticking out to me, so I will say, I don't know if it's going to be a round 2. Again, like I said, take the method of victory in the rounds with like a fucking tablespoon of salt. The money line pick is all that matters. Moving on to Ludovic Klein. I got Ludovic Klein winning, man. I could see him winning a decision. I could see him not finishing Thiago Moises, but maybe he does and wins by KO TKO, but I'm going to keep that one safe. Miguel Beza, fuck, man. I have no clue. I'll just guess KO TKO. Is there any other choice but round 1? Zachary Reese. God, man. Fucking Zachary Reese. I don't think this fight goes to a decision. I do not know how this fight... I'll say Zachary Reese. That one I might actually just straight up have to leave. Nothing comes to me. Bruno Ferreira. And KO TKO round 2. Maybe even round 1, honestly. Maybe even round 3. Who knows, but I fucking wrote down round 1. Round 2. Raul Rojas Jr. by a calm decision. If not, actually, he might finish him, but I don't think so. Dustin Jacoby, I got by KO TKO, unfortunately. Unfortunately for fucking Dominic Reyes. What round does it happen in? Round 2, sticking out to me, man. Okay, I guess it happens in round 2. And Jared Cannonier. This is a 5-round fight, I'm assuming. Yeah, main event has to be. I could easily see Jared finishing him in the later rounds. I could see Jared just beating his ass to a decision. And Nasruddin Imavov is okay at stopping people from finishing him. So I'll say Jared gets this one done by decision. And that's it. I'll let you go. Fights are on in a couple hours. Hold your loved ones close. If you like the video, please leave it a like. If you dislike the video, please leave it a dislike. That's me saying, please leave it a dislike if you dislike the video. And let me know why you dislike the video. All comments are appreciated. I will respond to them. I really hope that you enjoyed this quick little pick video, coming through crazy. I was going to have a recap video for last week, but I tried to do too much editing in it, and so it never got made, or it never got finished, I should say. Never got finished. I might edit and do like a double recap of last week and this week of 303 or 302 and this fight night. We'll see. We'll see on that. Also, maybe some new content coming too. I always say that. New content in terms of like fucking pure degeneracy that's been going on in my city with these fucking live streaming rats. These St. Mark's live streaming rats that aren't even from fucking New York. But I don't want to talk too much about that. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday. I hope you enjoy the fights as much as I'm going to enjoy the fights. Like I said, hold your loved ones close. Wish for peace on earth and goodwill towards all mankind. Thank you so much for watching. As always, much love. Big kiss.